what does your spouse do that gets on your nerve? And how did you learn to live with it?
Okay, well, we had talked about this before. I did find a list that I've made, which I think it's 112 items that I've got. And so I really don't want to share because we'd be here till tomorrow.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mike and Christelle podcast, where family meets faith and fun. We have an exciting episode for you, and we know you're going to love it.
Today we've been joined by our good friends, David and Gaye.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Christelle.
Hi.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm 66 years old, been married to Gaye just on 43 years.
Wow.
We have 43 last week. Seems like...
Oh, last week. So we are celebrating your anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much.
You're fresh.
So it's been the best 43 years of my life and
Yes.
Gaye's. We have 3 lovely daughters.
Yes.
Our youngest daughter has just moved to Tamworth with her husband and 2 children, so we have our grandchildren with us.
Yes.
And another daughter, Alison, living in Sydney, and
Yes.
another daughter, Felicity, living in London, who's about to be married.
Yeah.
So I'm studied as a doctor for many years, was working in the outback as a flying doctor, and then specialised as an eye surgeon, and have been in Tamworth for 30 years as an eye surgeon.
Wow.
Presently semi-retired, just working 2 days a week.
Semi-retired? Because your daughter is
My
joining?
Phoebe, our youngest daughter, has just finished her training as an eye surgeon and
Yeah.
has come to Tamworth and will be staying and working with me and eventually taking over the practice. So for the last 16 years we've been helping with a charity in India called Eye Openers, where we provide eye surgery and Christian work to people in rural poor India in one little part.
Can we call you philanthropist or something?
It's a big word, philanthropist. We feel that God has blessed us immensely.
Yeah.
And the reason that he blessed us was not so we could be sitting back and enjoying it,
Yeah,
but
great.
so we
That's
should be a
good.
blessing to others.
Yeah.
And that's been on our hearts at least for 25 years.
Yeah.
And certainly the last 20 in a very active capacity, of which our India work is
Yes.
one of the key things we're involved with, but also work in other countries, including North Korea,
Wow.
where we also do charity work there. And for us, it's been a huge blessing to be involved in this.
I have permission to call you Dr. David and philanthropist. And why are you laughing? Philanthropist is a good name. Okay, I will give myself that permission.
Guys, remember to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss when we post new episodes.
Great.
Okay.
If you can go 43 years ago, how was it? How did you meet? Yes.
That's
start with-
exciting.
Let's start
Yes,
with you.
let's hear from the
What's your
from
version?
The
side of
we'll give
the
two
real
versions.
version.
Well, I grew up in the country, in a country area just north of Tamworth, but I moved to Sydney to train as a nurse, and it was during that time that I started going I became a Christian down there, and then I started going to a church with a lot of young people. And one night, this really scruffy guy with long hair and a beard and a big leather jacket and arrived on a motorbike, and I took one look at him and I thought, wow. But I was very shy as well, and so, he thought I was not interested or snobby or something, but but anyway, eventually God brought us together, and here we are.
David's version of story now.
Now this version.
Yeah, like Gaye, I grew up in Newcastle and went to Sydney for studying medicine.
Yes.
And spent several years really unable to find a church to settle down into, but kept my faith despite being lonely. One day I'd heard about a lively church near the university I was at and walked in, and it was 150 young people made the church with very few people over 25.
Wow.
But I remember when I walked in, there was this most attractive blonde lady there.
Thank you.
And thought, she's a really nice looking girl, but she won't talk much. She must be a snob or not interested in me. So fast forward probably 18 months.
Yes.
And by then the church was renting houses. So I was living in a house with boys that went to the church. Gaye was living in a house that was rented by the church with girls living in.
Yeah.
And so we'd go out in groups like she said. And bit by bit I was able to talk to her. And I was actually very shy with girls as well, but just felt myself attracted to her.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and we started going out about 2 years after we first met, and then 18 months later we got married. And
So what attracted you to each other? Like what is it that you saw about each other that you loved?
Okay. Well, certainly initially Gay's looks. She was a very beautiful young lady,
Yes.
lovely long blonde hair,
Yeah.
and a beautiful smile.
Yeah.
And I found her fun to be with, so I just wanted to be with her.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as I've said to other people, the things that attracted to me then are
Yes.
still there, but there's so many other qualities that
Yeah,
I've
that's
actually
good. That's good.
learnt since then that I had no idea.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful because they're qualities that have helped our marriage survive, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Gay, anything? You mentioned the leather jacket. Any other?
I guess the appearances,
Yes.
that physical attraction
Yeah.
is a very real thing. But I
Yeah.
think I've learned over the years that as you mature in your relationship, those things become less important.
Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
deeper things, the spiritual things that become more important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at that stage, initially, yes,
the door, like the key to-
physical
Yes.
attraction,
Yeah.
and the fact that he was a Christian, because
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
not. I'd been yes, I'd been out with other fellows before, and there was not that same spiritual base, and that's really important.
Absolutely.
And I didn't want to go down that road again. And it was after we'd been out for a little while,
Yeah.
and I was really in love. I went off my food. I couldn't eat. The best way to lose weight ever is to fall deeply in love, you know.
Okay.
But because I had been really emotionally hurt previously,
Yeah.
I didn't want to go down that road. I didn't
Yeah.
want that pain again. And I remember calling out to God and praying to God and saying, Lord, if this is not of you, please take it away. I
Yeah.
don't want this relationship
Yeah.
if it's not of you. And I had a very clear voice spoke to me and said, David is going to be your husband.
Wow.
But then that was, it was wonderful. But that was really hard because
Yes.
I really believed that was God. I knew it was God.
yeah.
But it took a long time before he got the,
He got the
same message. And I couldn't say anything, of course.
Yeah.
I sometimes I thought,
Should
I
I
should
say?
say to him,
Yes.
God's told me that. I thought, no, I can't do that.
I've heard of people who said it didn't end up well.
No,
Can end up
doesn't
badly.
work. Doesn't work.
Yeah, I was fairly shy with girls and a bit slow on the uptake.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling very attracted to Gaye,
Yeah.
but also enjoying the little bit of freedom that I had.
Yes.
And I remember speaking to the elder of our church, who was a really good friend and only 5 years older than me, saying, I'm really attracted to Gaye, but I'm not sure, I don't want to lose my freedom. And he just laughed at me and said, freedom's not something you have, it's something that that you think you have. And so I rethought about it and thought, it's probably not a valid way of thinking. And then after that, I started to realise that she was the person that I should marry.
Yeah.
And my parents were very encouraging as well. They were lovely Christian folk. And although I didn't sort of ask them intimately, but I could tell that they were really keen for Gaye to become their daughter-in-law.
That was
and my
good
wife.
though that you were humble enough to ask for advice, like to speak to your.
I was confused,
Yeah.
I think,
That-
and
that
I'm
was
really
good.
struggling,
Yeah.
After getting married, did you feel, or after engaging, did you feel like you lost your freedom,
No.
or you gained more freedom?
I didn't
or
feel
how did
either
you
way
process
then.
that? Yes.
As I mentioned, we got married in December and I started work as a doctor in the January, and I very much felt I lost my freedom then because in those days our junior doctor worked 110 hours a week.
Wow.
And so we'd been
Wow.
married 3 weeks and suddenly I was working 110 hours and
Wow.
in the other 50 hours of a week you had to sleep, eat, have a relationship and get to know your wife.
Yeah.
And I was just constantly tired.
Yeah.
And Gaye was understanding because she was a nurse and knew that's what she'd bargained into.
Yeah.
But I felt I'd lost my freedom that I had as a university student where I could come and go as I liked. And I was just basically working like a dog, for want of a better word, for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And I felt more losing freedom to that than I felt, incredible freedom once we're married, because we're married, we could, do anything.
You gain freedom.
Gain freedom, that's right.
Yes,
we're very
you
conscious of not having sex before marriage for want of freedom, but once we're married, well, that freedom comes. So
Yes,
I felt I'd gained
more
freedom there,
freedom.
but lost it in joining the workforce in a very hard job.
Yeah.
So work took your freedom away, not marriage.
That's right.
Not
Yes.
marriage.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does your spouse do that gets on your nerve? And how did you learn to live with it?
Okay, well, we had talked about this before. I did find a list that I've made, which I think it's 112 items that I've got. And so I really don't want to share because we'd be here till tomorrow.
Yes.
But no, in reality, no, very little that she gets on my nerves.
Yeah.
Gaye's incredibly organised and incredibly tidy.
Yeah.
I love to be tidy and I love to be organised.
Yeah.
But my tidiness, even when I was a boy at home, my mother used to despair. And Gaye's so tidy,
Not good enough.
tidy up after me, and I'll lose important items of paper that
you
I've.
shouldn't leave them in the kitchen.
And I find that gets frustrating because I knew I should do and answer that paper, but it's disappeared. So that's probably the main thing. But there's very little that we've had over the years that we've come to major disagreements about, isn't there?
Yeah.
At least that's my take on it.
Yeah. What about you, Gaye?
Well, that tidiness thing, yes, I am OCD. People don't think it, but I am. And I like to be tidy.
Yeah.
And it really drives me to distraction. This little trail of papers all through the house, in the bedroom, in the bathroom, in the kitchen. And he has an office down there and a desk out in the other room. So, I mean, there's plenty of other places with bits of paper not in the kitchen, where I'm trying to prepare food. So I'm afraid I haven't overcome. I just gather it up and take it.
Yeah.
And I do try to keep it in the same order, but it doesn't live in the kitchen.
It goes back where it belongs.
But, of course, there's the other old thing that irritates so many young married people is the husbands that won't put the toilet seat down.
Yes.
I've heard of that a lot.
But when you really think about it, they're not important.
Yeah.
But in the broader scheme of things, they're not important.
But annoying.
Well, I've been to a number of weddings where they've read that passage from 1 Corinthians 13 about love being patient, kind, not insisting on its own way, not angering easy.
Yeah.
And you see people that get really irritated about little trivial things like that. But they're not important. And you get angry when your self-will is blocked or stopped. So I think if you're really trying to love and to love in a marriage relationship, you need to overcome those things.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And to not let them rule your relationship or your life.
Yeah.
And so don't keep a record of wrongs.
Yes.
In the last, sorry to cut you short, I want to pick on that. In the last 43 years you've been married, you started by being annoyed by those things, like keeping the toilet seat up, and you were annoyed by the paper being lost in the house. Moved in your kind of organization that was order for you. But how did you come to a place where you understood this is not a reason to fight? How did you progress? How did you
I'll just
to get there?
butt in quickly. When we moved to this house 28 years ago, the toilet seat in our bathroom won't stay up by itself unless you hold it. So you let it go and it falls down. So there was never an issue until last year when we changed it.
Well, there was a reason for that, because I bought a new toilet seat and it had these little washers that you could put underneath so that it wouldn't let it stay up. It would fall down.
Wow.
So I added those in so it would fall
So
down.
I've just found that out now.
That was an automatic problem solver.
That is beautiful.
It was solved.
But I've got
so
past
fun.
that now. I've really learned to think, is this important?
Yeah.
And I think, no, this is not important. David has just as much right to use the toilet as I do. And just because he sees, his perspective is different to mine.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean that mine's right
Yeah.
and his is wrong.
Yeah.
I was challenged in another, not a marriage situation, in another cultural situation where there was these same sort of tensions, cultural tensions.
Yes.
And I remember praying to God and thinking, oh, I'm so irritated about this, but I didn't want to cause offence or anything. And I prayed to God and asked him, is it me or is it them?
Yeah.
And I got a very clear voice came to me again, it's you.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, okay, Lord.
Wow.
That doesn't mean that I'm right
Yeah.
or they're right.
Yeah.
It's just our cultures are different.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to, to serve in a different culture or in a marriage, to work in a relationship, you have to get past those differences
Yeah.
and be willing to serve the other person.
Yeah, great.
And
Wow.
to be accepting of the differences.
Yeah. It sounds
And to work with it, and
Yeah.
to not let it become an irritation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it can
43 years later, it sounds easy.
Yeah.
But for those who are still in their second year, they really we need to work on it. My
It
wife
is,
and I
yeah.
are on their 17th, I think. We're still working on it.
And one thing I'll just add to that is that I grew up with a fairly critical sort of background from some members of our family. And,
Yeah.
and I've learned, as I've meditated, I've learned that criticism, a spirit of
Yeah.
criticism
Yeah.
is poison
Yeah.
Yes.
in a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would warn young married people
Yeah.
Yeah.
to guard against a critical spirit and the importance
Yeah.
of giving thanks and praise
Yeah.
and not allowing criticism,
Yeah.
no
That's
matter
great.
how small,
That's
to
great.
take
Gaye.
a hold in your heart because it is a poison.
It is.
And
Yeah.
I'm really appreciative of David, on that giving praise and thanks. He's been thanks me for cooking dinner, even if it's leftovers,
Thank you for cooking. No, that's from
That's
yesterday.
so cool. Yeah.
But
That's
it's nice
really
to
cool.
be told.
Yeah.
But that sort of things is important.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that's great.
important. It affects our attitudes within marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
That
other
is
thing,
so good.
that happened almost 40 years ago
Yeah.
when we were married 3 years. We were about to move interstate, start a new career, have our first child.
Yeah.
And in the space of 1 hour, that child was born with a terminal illness
Yeah.
and subsequently died. And all our possessions were destroyed in a fire while they were waiting to be moved to the new place. So in 1 hour, we lost our future of children because we were told we probably would always have children that die.
Wow.
And we lost all our worldly possessions except our motor car and a few things in it.
Yeah.
But what it did, it gave us perspective in that you think,
Yes.
well, what's important in life?
Wow.
And trivial things that might cause disagreement, you can waste a lot of time and energy.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, they don't buy you more time.
Oh, yeah.
And it made us really
that's
realise
good.
what's important in life.
Yeah.
That's
And probably material things are not important,
Yeah.
whereas relationships and family are very important. We learnt that lesson the hard way by just having that experience 40 years ago
Yeah.
next month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
wow.
that's coloured our life ever since then.
Yeah.
Thankful for God because we had 3 daughters after that who all didn't have a terrible illness that would cost their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And blessed with abundant possessions, even though
Yeah.
we lost everything we own and
Yeah.
had no recourse with insurance or anything. So
Yeah.
it just altered our thinking from that day forward. So that's been 40 years now of a different mindset to perhaps where we could have gone if we'd chosen a different direction to go in.
Yeah. Wow. If you don't mind me asking about your daughter that died, how long did it take you guys to heal from that, do you think?
Probably variable. Sometimes I think it took me a long time because I think I threw myself into work.
Yes.
And I've worked like a Trojan ever since. And I sometimes wonder, was that partly a way of dealing with it?
Yeah.
It's like another lifetime ago now, and she's buried in another state.
Yeah.
And occasionally I've been in that state and been able to call in at the graveside, and it
Yeah.
almost feels like another world and another lifetime ago. So
Yeah.
it probably took many years.
Yep.
But as I said, I think I throwing myself into work, part of it was a response to that.
Yeah.
Part of it was also feeling, well, life is short and uncertain. I really want to make my life count. And I felt God calling me to become an eye surgeon.
Yeah.
So I thought if I do that, I'll go for it 100%. And so part of it was that. So there's always mixed reasons behind it.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it took some time. You go through denial first and not understanding how it happened.
Yeah.
The one thing we did was that we realised that we had a choice at that time that we could have become bitter and angry at God and blame God as to allowing our first daughter to die and subsequent daughters to possibly die. And we looked at old people that I knew that had become bitter and thought, we just don't want to end up that way.
Yes.
Wow.
So we'll choose to follow God, even
Yeah.
though we couldn't understand what and why it was happening, but just to trust God for our future and any future children we would have, even though the doctors told us probably the same thing would happen every time we tried. And by the time we found the diagnosis out, Gaye was pregnant with our second daughter, and their advice was to have an abortion, of which we were totally opposed.
Horrified.
And told them in no uncertain terms the reason why we didn't believe in that.
Yeah.
And her name was called Felicity, which means happiness because of the joy that she brought us, and her middle name is called Faith because we had to trust God for those 9 months that she would actually be born healthy.
Yeah.
So I think it did take a while to work through, but you never quite know when that grieving process starts and when it finishes.
It's a very gradual thing, and I can't either tell you a certain date when that stopped, but it was a gradual thing. And when, after Rebecca, that was our first daughter's name, died, and I just felt that I was being held over a deep, dark, bottomless pit.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I had this strange feeling of being held there, that something underneath was holding me and stopping me from falling into that pit.
Yeah,
and now I know that it was the everlasting arms of God, of the Father,
That's
holding me.
Yeah.
And he has been so faithful through that, and ever since. We've had many different challenges come through our life. Most recent one for me was breast cancer. David had a heart attack. And I had a melanoma. I've been under the surgeon's knife several times. But God's always there. He's always faithful. And he's always been supporting us and looking after us. And I remember also at that time choosing, it was a choice. What do we do now? Do we keep following God? Or do we turn our back on God because Rebecca had died and walk away? And I just felt that I can't make that choice. Not that I can't make a choice, but I can't make a choice to turn my back on God.
Wow.
I couldn't do that. So no, I've just got to keep trusting you, God, and keep going on. And that's
the fact that in the same day we lost all our possessions was almost like something like Jonah. It happened in the same hour, within 1 hour, 60 minutes. Both had happened. Job, sorry. Getting my Bible characters mixed. Started that one again. For us, it was very much like a Job experience because within 60 minutes, this daughter was born with a terminal illness and we lost all our possessions. So
it's all happening
in the space of 60 minutes. Oh, wow. And a few other things complicating. I was actually out of town when Gaye came into labour. Couldn't get back, so I chartered a plane to fly me overnight, and the plane got held up getting some fuel because we had to travel a long way, and I arrived 1 hour after the birth, so I missed the birth and found that we had a very, very ill daughter, and as we were coming into land in Sydney, we couldn't get into the airport because of smoke, and the smoke was from a massive fire in a warehouse where our possessions were.
Wow.
And didn't find that out till later that day, but very quickly you're faced with daughter facing death, lose all your possessions, and material things became of no consequence at all.
Yes, absolutely.
And we really realised just how little material things matter. We'll be dead and gone one day, and material things don't matter at all, but people in eternity is what matters.
Wow.
The other thing was that having 3 healthy daughters afterwards was the healing balm.
Very much.
Really don't know if I would have coped if each 3 daughters had died the same way, but God didn't allow us to be tested that way, but instead blessed us with 3 daughters, and that was probably the biggest part of the healing, just the joy that those children have brought us over the decades.
If I would connect this to it's such a great experience in the sense where it's not a good experience. I call it great because you grew in it and you became who you are today. What did you enjoy in these 3 phases of your life? Like the first season where you were just the two of you without children, then you had children that you were raising, and then the children left the house, then you found yourself just the two of you. Like now you are just the two of you. And then we have grandchildren. You like 4 stages of your life. What did you enjoy most in each season?
The season together is a blur because it was 3 years from when we were married to that first daughter was born.
Yes.
And it was work. I worked 110 hours a week. So when I look back, I'm surprised our marriage survived because the divorce rate amongst doctors did that, it was more than 50%.
Wow.
And I think it's just got God's working in both our lives and Gaye's patience and understanding that she had to give up her husband for those 3 years.
Gaye.
Yeah.
Then that first year or 18 months when we both had a daughter who died and waiting for the next one was just hard. Working still hard, but not as hard, but just working through that whole process. But probably one of the high points of our life was really the years our daughters were at home with us, particularly holidays we had together where we were able to have a lot of good holidays. But now we feel this season of our life with grandchildren in our hometown is an equal high point.
Great.
Yeah, we never thought until a couple of years ago that we would have grandchildren in the same town. They would be perhaps in the same country but not in the same town.
Yeah.
So you have to travel to go to them.
But they've only been with us for 9 months or so it's a bit early to say is the high point at the current season as high as the 15, 20 years when we had our children growing up. But we were expecting so. Because we have our children now as adults but also have grandchildren, and a lot of people I know who are older than me said grandchildren are the best. You have such fun with them and you can enjoy them but then hand them back to their parents to actually do all the hard work. And so perhaps we'll find this season even more enjoyable.
I'm not sure how you navigate other people because you sound like a peaceful couple, but when it comes to bringing other people in your life, like in-laws, do you have like in-laws? Do you have other people who come in your life, and how do you process that?
They're all what we'd call in-laws. None of them are what we'd call outlaws.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so we're blessed with family that we get on with.
Good.
And without exception, really.
That's good.
So that is good. And the house, I guess, is big enough so that if there's a lot of people here, you need a quiet corner.
It's beautiful
you can
go somewhere to go. And I tend to get up very early, and so I like a bit of peace and quiet of a morning for an hour or two.
And I tend to stay up late. I'm naturally a night owl, so I get my mental space when everybody else has gone to bed.
And I get mine early in the morning.
Oh, so you go to bed early?
I go to bed nowadays 9 o'clock at the latest.
And you go to bed late. So you spend like 1-2 hours alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that's
in the
your
morning,
recharge time.
That's my recharge.
Yeah.
And you wake up early.
I wake up 5 or 5:30 and get up.
She stays on bed for a few hours.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes. But sometimes she'll come to bed earlier. Other times she'll get up earlier. But by and large, that first couple of hours of a morning for me,
it's very.
I just enjoy them by myself.
Yes.
No lights on if it's still dark. Just slowly waking up, cup of tea. Have an iPad, so I do a mixture of reading the Bible and reading the paper, checking emails, and just slowly come to the surface and get ready for the day ahead.
Wow.
Whereas of a night, by 9 o'clock, I'm exhausted and ready for bed nowadays. I didn't used to be, but that's for me nowadays.
So when you were working 100 and something hours per week and kids in the house, how did you manage that?
We had no kids in the house when I was working 110 hours a week.
Okay.
But when I was working 110 hours a week, I could easily work 80 hours without sleep. And that was expected as a junior doctor in those days.
Wow.
But I would come home and Gaye would find me fell asleep at the table, just my head on the table.
Wow.
Because I'd be so tired after that.
Yeah.
But I just seemed to have this ability, but no longer have I got that ability. I could just go for days on end without needing any sleep.
Wow.
Yeah, but that was when I was in my 20s.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, now I'm in my 60s, no way. If I go to bed at 11 the next day, I'm quite quite doughy. Yeah.
Yeah. Gaye, you're quite an amazing artist, if I may say so.
Yeah,
thank
very
you.
good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is that like a something that you love doing, or you went to school for it? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Ever since I was a little girl, I've just loved colours. Just I remember playing with my grandmother's embroidery cottons and just looking at the colours of the cotton. You know, I loved it, and I think I've always had that artistic seed there. But it wasn't until I was mature, like after the children were into their teenage years, that I started painting, and I did some courses through TAFE here and other things, and yes, just developed it from there, and that's one way I recharge as
Yeah, I
well.
thought so.
Yes.
I thought so. Yeah.
One day a week I go to a friend of mine who's also likes to paint, and we spend 3 or 4 hours just painting in their own little world. You can get really lost in the canvas.
Oh, wow.
In fact, the painting of my wife that you made last Christmas is still in our lounge room.
It's
very
beautiful.
Like,
Yeah, it
it's
was an amazing
on
surprise.
the display in our lounge room. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Tell us, you are running. Do you call it a practice or
Yes.
a practice?
Medical practice.
Medical
Medical practice. I think it's the one in the kind. How do you manage that as a couple and maintain the tension between the two of you? How do you do business together? Sorry if I can call it a business. How do you do business together and stay happily married?
Yeah, okay. It is a business in one way. I look on it as a profession and a medical practice. So we
Yes.
provide
Yes.
eye care to much of the northwest of New South Wales.
Yes.
But I have to employ staff to do it,
Yeah.
buy equipment. So we have to charge fees.
Yes.
So in that respect, it's a business.
Yes.
I don't get involved that much with that side of it. I leave it to Gaye. And in most of our dealings, we complement each other in that I'm what you call a big picture person. I'll see the big picture and
Yeah.
I'll head off in that direction, and Gaye is an attention to detail person, so she will then mop up after me with the big picture and do the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And if businesses that supply our services relied on me, they'd be banging at the door wanting the money because I would just not think of paying the bill.
Yes.
Not that I don't want to. I
just
don't
keep
I'm not thinking of that.
Yeah.
Surgery
Whereas
after
Gaye
surgery.
is like a bulldog where she's just got it written down and
wow.
everything runs like clockwork.
Yeah.
And so we very much complement each that and any other business dealings that we've had.
Yeah.
So that means that there's no great tension at all.
Yeah.
We're blessed where, when we were first married, we had very little finances, and after we lost all our possessions, it took us years to recover financially. But we're sort of in a blessed position now where we don't have to be worried too much about the money side of it.
Yes.
So there's never financial pressures, which are often in marriages.
Yeah.
But I think the way we complement each other also means we've got a delineation of duties, and we both just naturally do our own thing, and we compare notes, and Gaye's often asking me, well, what do you want to do with this? And I'll say, we need to do that. And then I know she'll implement it without me having to give it any more thought.
Yeah.
So it works very well without any real conflict.
How did you know what you are
Like, how did
good
you
at?
get there?
Yeah.
Like, how did you get to a
there?
point where you realized,
Gaye,
Well,
how did
this
you know
is my
what you are
thing?
good at in the marriage and in the
Like-
business?
We fell into it, I think.
It was just boom.
I think it's something you learn, like, and picked up little jobs at a time, like
Yes.
tiny little tasks,
Yeah.
and then you learn to do that, and then something else needs doing, so you learn how to do
Yes.
that, and it's just a gradual,
gradual
growing.
and just naturally gravitated to it.
Yeah.
So my focus had always been the patient in front of me at the time, to give the best attention to that person.
Yeah.
But knowing behind the scenes that, I had to think of the next patient or think, well, no, we need some more equipment and all that. So I gravitated to that side of it and thinking where we should be in a year's time. Gaye just likes this attention to detail. So on bookkeeping and paying bills, she was able to do that without any dramas, even though she wasn't trained like it and has gradually learnt.
yeah.
Yeah.
And with a good team around us of staff and people like accountants and all that have been able to help and guide how to do it.
Have you ever got to a place where you feel like you need more voice or less voice in the business? Gaye, because your husband is like the main guy there. Have you ever felt like you need more authority or less authority or something like that?
No, I don't desire any further authority. What I do, I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I enjoy a little bit of bookkeeping. And it helps me to understand what's going on in his life.
Yes.
And gives me insight into what he does with work, but it also builds relationship with our staff because I have to
Yes.
communicate with them.
Great.
And that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
One day I'd like to hand it over to someone else. You know, it does take a lot of time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, it's just an enjoyable thing that I
Yeah.
enjoy,
Yeah.
that I do at the moment. But no, I wouldn't want to extend it any further.
Yeah,
So you
no.
never had tension to manage your business in relation to your marriage? Like
No,
you've never-
no, I've never had that.
Yeah.
You just knew your place.
Yeah,
you knew
that's
that.
a blessing.
I can do
My
this.
desire is, from when we were early married, I wanted to have a family and be a mum and raise my children. That
Yeah.
was my desire. I've fallen into this other bookkeeping role just for need of someone to do it, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just growing.
David,
I said,
would you- yes.
I said earlier that when I met Gaye, the things that attracted me to her were her good looks and her enjoyable, fun personality.
Rightfully
But
so.
there's many qualities that I found afterwards.
Yeah.
And one has been that she hasn't tried to be the main player in our marriage in terms of,
Yes,
taking over, but
great.
she's been a phenomenal support for
Yeah,
everything
great.
I've
Yeah.
aimed to do. And so that way she's complimented me, and then I've tried to support what she does to the best of our abilities.
Yeah.
And in our bedroom, there's a pillow on our bed that's got an embroidery that says, "Behind every successful man lies an exhausted woman." That I didn't buy, Gaye bought, but
Someone a friend gave it.
all right,
But I keep it there because it's very true.
it's very funny, but it is actually true in that
is so true.
we're not successful on the world stage, but I've had a very successful career.
Yeah.
And if I had married some of the girls I think that I knew when I was a teenager,
Yeah.
I'd either be divorced
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
wouldn't be in the
So
position I am
great.
today.
Yeah, I can imagine. With
Yeah,
110 hours work.
Yeah, and those 3 years that we were first married, that
Yeah.
was it. And
Yeah.
the old Jewish custom was when a man got married, he didn't work for a year. He spent it with his wife, just getting to know her. And we spent 3 years virtually hardly seeing each other.
Yeah, wow.
Even though we would, I'd come home I
absolutely.
wouldn't come home for nights at an end because you'd be working 60, 70 hours without a break. But Gaye was very patient and very accommodating just to realise that was the job I had to do. And I felt trapped in the job, but that's just how it was in those days. Fortunately, it's not now.
Did you know that you needed a wife who will support you in that journey?
No.
Or you just found that it's happening?
I was a totally naive, fairly ignorant young man when I got married. in that
Yes.
I never really thought ahead of
Yes.
what marriage would entail.
Yeah.
We had very good mentors in our church
That's
that
a
gave
very
good
good
preparation
thing.
for marriage,
That's
but
a
more on
very
the
good
spiritual level,
That's good.
but not on the nuts and bolts of practical.
Yeah.
But so just by the grace of God, really, I think we survived those few years, and particularly by Gaye's not wanting to demand too much of me when I was just so tired all the time,
Yeah.
and also allowing me to pursue a career that, even after those 3 years, it was always career would dominate your time.
Yeah.
Studying for ophthalmology, it's a very hard road. So
Yeah.
I was working 80 hours a week then, but studying at about 30 or 40 hours a week
Wow.
to pass the
Wow.
exams. And we were having children at the same time.
Wow.
So Gaye did all the heavy lifting
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
both having the children, but also a lot of the raising. And it got to the point even where our eldest daughter, Felicity, when she was 3 or 4, one night I went in to kiss her goodnight and she said, "Daddy, where do you live?"
Wow.
I said, "Darling, I live here." And she said, "No, you don't. You live at the hospital."
Oh,
And what I'd realised, and hit me like a bullet in the head, that
Yes.
I would leave for work of a morning, which is asleep, kiss her on the forehead, get home at 9 o'clock at night, she'd be asleep, kiss her on the forehead, and I'd see her weekends. And in
Wow.
her little mind, she'd thought I lived somewhere else.
Oh,
And
baby,
I
yeah.
made a decision that day that once I was through the study, any spare time I had, we would just pour into our family.
beautiful.
So we had phenomenal holidays and time together as a family growing up. And the legacy has really been our children used to love to come on holidays with us even when they had left home and were at uni, and we've still got a great relationship with them.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, did you have any expectations when your husband was working like that? Did you have any expectation that were unmet and you felt disappointed about, or you just kept?
It used to concern me that he was so tired.
Yes.
But having been a nurse, I understood. And I didn't become angry. I was just concerned that
'cause
he
he's
was so
tired.
tired.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your point was not about how you felt in the relationship. It was about how he was doing. You were more
Like,
concerned
about
about
his
his
health.
health or his future than how you feel.
Yes, I guess so. I mean, at the same
so-
time, you wanted to spend more time together,
Yes.
but I understood that were the demands of the job. That's how it was back then.
You understood.
And that was one of the qualities she had
That's
that I never
really
saw
so
when
good.
we
I'm
were
being
dating.
impressed here.
That's
like,
really
I'm like,
cool.
Yeah.
Wow, this is. I wish every couple was like that. Like you
Yeah,
understand.
but it's a very, very important thing, because some couples having trouble in their marriage just because of that,
Yes.
not understanding each other, not like you said, not serving each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, I heard someone sum it up very well the other day, not just marriage, but on relationships, to say that we treat people in one of two ways. We treat them as a commodity where, we're in a relationship with them for what we can get out of it.
Yes.
Or we treat people as a commitment where we treat them person for what we can put into it. And
Yeah.
I think the sign of a good marriage is that it's a commitment where you're out for the other person's best welfare
Yes.
rather than a commodity. Well, what can my spouse give to me?
Yeah.
And if you do that, well, then you'll never be satisfied probably
Yeah.
because you always want more.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a commitment where what can I do and bring into this relationship,
Yes.
whether that be marriage or good friendships,
Yeah.
I think it's the world of difference. And I thought that was a very
Yes.
good summary
Yeah,
of,
that's a
That's
very good
beautiful.
of
summary.
relationships in
It's very
general.
helpful.
And I
Yeah.
guess the teaching we had was very good teaching scripturally.
Yeah.
And it was very much about commitment that, based on the Bible, which says, a man will leave his mother and his father and be
Yes.
joined to one wife and they'll
Yeah.
become as one. And that means physically, sexually,
Yeah.
Yes.
and relationally.
Yeah.
But also that marriage was a lifelong commitment.
Yeah.
Yes.
So long now people marry, and if something better offer comes, well then
Yes.
instead of commitment, it's after
Yeah.
commodity.
Yes.
Something offers more.
Yeah.
And I guess we'd both always felt that when we said I do, it was
Yeah.
for richer, for poorer.
Yeah.
And it's been both, for better, for worse.
Yeah.
Mostly been better, but has been
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
And for sickness and in health, we've both had sickness and health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for long as we both shall live. And, we've, I guess, enter
like
into it
implementing that.
with that
Mindset.
with that
Mindset,
mindset.
yeah.
So, times when, things haven't been going so well, cut and run was never an option.
Yeah.
But commitment was always the option.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why we're still together after 43 years of
Yeah.
being very human, very frail,
Yeah.
making lots of mistakes,
Yeah.
having a lot of adversity
Yeah.
in various periods of our life.
Yeah.
David, were you explaining to your family what is happening? Were you explaining to your wife why you are absent, why you are not there, or she just understood? Were you talking about it?
When I
or-
was working,
Yes.
she just understood. Like I'd have a roster where I had to work X number of hours. Later on, I was absent more because I was overseas, say in India, sometimes by myself, or a conference, or North Korea. And we both went into those overseas works with full knowledge that she would free me up to go and do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And when the children were still at home, would sort of keep the home running while I was away. And Gaye's what I would call a very low maintenance wife, whereas
Yes.
some men are married to what you call a very high maintenance wife.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
I think if Gaye had been a high maintenance wife, yeah,
Practice.
yeah, yeah, we
Gaye, I would like both of you to speak on this because this is a very important thing in our culture today, where like people demand what the spouse should do, and the amount of hours that you want them to be around you, and I understand it's healthy for couples to spend time together. We are not encouraging people not to spend time together, but I see sometimes there may be demand for work or something like that for the benefit of the family. So how to understand that balance there, that you knew that it was for the family he was doing it and you did not demand him to be home, we are not encouraging people not to be home, but you understood it was necessary at that time not to be home. So how did you come with that wisdom that this is for us? Let me support him instead of being another issue to deal with. When he comes home, you are angry because he was not home. When he goes to work, everybody's expecting him to do things. And sometimes, not only men, anyone can get stuck into that kind of world. How did you get that wisdom?
I think I really didn't think too much about it at the time. I mean, this was life. That's how it was. I mean, but thinking about it now, like as
43 years
later, I think it comes back to what is love.
Yeah.
You know, in a marriage relationship, it's all about love, isn't it? And what is love? Well, you go back to that 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient. Love is kind. It doesn't get angry easily. It doesn't insist on its own way. And I would ask the question of people that are demanding things, who is this for? Is it for your own way? Or are you trying to serve the other person?
Yeah.
You know, and love never fails, that scripture ends with.
Yes.
By loving another person, you don't fail that other person.
Yes. Wow.
And you serve that other person. Now, I'm not talking about you becoming a doormat.
No. You're not a slave.
And an abusive relationship,
No.
that's a whole different thing.
Absolutely.
But in a healthy relationship, each party is serving the other and not insisting on their own way. That doesn't mean that you don't have differences of opinion.
Yeah.
But, there's a different perspective about how you look at the other person and the time you spend with each other. And yes, you do have to work at your relationship and spend time with one another. It's really important, because if you don't spend time with one another, well, you can drift apart.
Yes.
But it's all about your attitude to one another and your lives.
Definition of love that you had, the commitment mindset.
Yeah.
Instead of what you are getting from the other, what you are putting in. That mindset is very important. I think that's what drove your relationship for years. Like you were just
We had a commonality of purpose.
Yeah, great.
I don't think I really realised it at the time, but it's something that grown to realise after 43 years.
Yeah.
ago.
Oh,
Wow.
that's good. Okay, I know you've touched on this a lot, but I just want one thing, if you can, one thing that like for example, for you, David, what does Gaye do? I know you've said so much, but what does Gaye do that makes you smile?
Maybe that list of 112 stuff.
Makes you smile.
Yeah, makes me smile.
Yeah.
Probably when she's happy and smiles, because one of the first things that attracted me to her is with her beautiful smile. And there's a photo somewhere here on our wedding day of her walking down the aisle with a beam like a Cheshire cat, just beautiful white teeth and pale skin and like now.
Like
just
that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's
Excellent.
probably
That's the one thing.
just enjoy seeing her smile. 'Cause
Great. What about you, Gaye?
David's always been fun to be with. We've done lots of interesting things together. He's a real adventurer, and I'm not, but organises great holidays and interesting things to do.
Yeah.
But I guess the basis of it is his faithfulness.
Yeah, great.
I know he's faithful to me, and it gives me real peace and joy in my heart.
What does it mean, Gaye? Sorry to cut you short. What does it mean to be faithful, if you can expand there?
I know that I can trust him.
Yes.
I know that he loves me.
Yeah.
I know that he loves me with a love like Christ. Like as Christ, husbands are commanded to love their wives as Christ loved the church. And a number of times I can see that David loves me in that way.
That's a bit too high a pedestal.
Well done,
That's
David.
And
well
that
done.
makes me feel secure.
Safe,
it gives me peace.
Yes.
And it gives me not a laughing joy, but it gives me a joy in here.
Yeah, the
To know
constant
that-
joy.
that I'm loved and
That's a challenge
That's-
to men.
Oh, well, that's what I said. She's put me on too high a pedestal.
You're doing
Because
great,
at the
David.
You've done it for 43
yeah,
years.
Yeah, but at the end of the
doing-
day, I'm a frail human being like the best of us.
But you're doing great.
And the trouble with being on a pedestal is you can think you're immune to falling off it because we're all frail, sinful human
Yes,
beings.
we
And so
are, yeah.
she's put me on a very high pedestal by
Yeah.
saying that.
After 43 years, I think you deserve
Yeah, I
to
think
hear
you-
that.
you-
and
you
I
do.
think, men, we should learn from that.
I
hear
guess
that
so.
The love we show to our spouse, our wives,
Yeah.
gives them that security,
Yeah, absolutely.
that safety. I love that. I love to
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big lesson to us.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
No,
young men coming.
Yeah.
I think at 43 years, you don't need to prove anything to each other. And so you sort of settle into a different phase of marriage than when you're first married.
Yeah.
And, fits like a shoe, for want of a better word. You know,
Yeah.
we're just
Yes.
used to our own ways.
Yeah.
And it takes away a lot of the tension, just that, I think, because you're not thinking, well, have I done something to offend or that? And even if you have, you know
Yeah.
that, well, that commitment's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And we've both changed too. I think when we were first married, David was much more controlling,
Yeah.
not over the top, but much
Well, I'm
more controlling.
money because I had none until then.
Well,
and,
Yeah.
Yes.
and that. But as we've grown to know one another better and trust one another more, that he's freer and he knows what to expect of me, I guess, and
Yes.
that I'm not going to go out and
Yeah.
run up big debts. Or,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I asked you about your expectation. We didn't ask him about his expectation, but when you say controlling, you mean he wanted things to go in a particular way and things to be done in a particular
It was
way? Or
probably financial, I guess.
Yes.
You know, like
he earned
had
it.
to account for every cent.
When I got married, I had my bank account with $20 in it. That was all I owned in the world.
Yeah.
I had more money than
Yeah,
him, and I had a car.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I married wealthy.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, but I was very
wealthy,
conscious of every cent.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
Gaye, particularly as a nurse, when she first went nursing,
Yes.
had her own income and would blow the lot. So we had quite different expectations on spending.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas now we both spend as we need to, and there's no threat or anything like that.
Yeah,
but when early
great.
on, it took me a while to realise that I need to give her freedom with the checkbook, for want of a better word.
How did you get there? Did you?
I can't remember.
You just
Yeah.
found yourself.
Yeah.
It
You're
just
free
happened.
from
Yeah,
it.
it just happened.
Yeah, it just happened. Probably I realised that
You out
the $20 I had in my bank account wasn't how the rest of my life would be. And also that as a married man, we needed to have a few more things than the
Yeah.
very,
Yes.
I had 2 pairs of pants and,
Yes.
one on, one off. And that was a very, how I lived then. And so, we could actually do a little bit better than that. And
Yeah.
I didn't need to worry about Gaye blowing the
Yeah.
lot and having the creditors kick us out of their house. So, but I think that was a gradual thing. But
Yeah.
it didn't take that many years, really.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
And
good.
you were also ready to grow, like you were ready to learn.
I'm sure so,
As
yes.
life
Yeah.
went by,
Yeah.
you also
Those,
learned.
those years, from late teens to early 30s are some of the busiest of your life. You're sort of usually finding a career, establishing that, finding a spouse, starting a family, take on a mortgage.
Yes.
Many, many things happen. And so that change of time in 10 years is much bigger than later in life. Which if I think back 10 years ago, our life is not as altered now. Probably
Yeah.
the biggest changes out, having grandchildren now. But those 10 years of life are just huge, and changes are huge. And I think you realise you do have to change because you can't stay the same as
The
you were.
same, yeah. It's a
And it's a challenge and an excitement as well to do that change.
Yeah.
Maybe one more thing before we close. If you can tell us, if you can take yourself to that first 10 years of your marriage,
Yeah.
or what is the biggest lesson you can give to those who are still there? Like we
that's a
still
good
have
one.
people who are in their second year of marriage or seventh year of marriage. They're still facing the same challenge. In fact, there are people who have $20 in their bank account today. So that's where they are. Like when they look at their bank account, $20. So what would you say to those? What are the things?
Okay. If you're a follower of Jesus, undoubtedly just to trust God with all aspects of your life, both your marriage and your finances, because God's no man's debtor, and if you honour him, the $20 will get you through, or whatever it is, but probably just to trust God for where you are at that point in time, and to ask God for wisdom as to what you should do with your future. I can remember as a young man, the Bible verse that stuck with me as a teenager was out of Proverbs 3, 5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your paths. And looking back 60 plus years, my paths have always been directed, and I can see, not in the little day-to-day things, but in the big picture things. I can just see God directing us every way. And, you know, as we've shared some of that direction, we end up going through very deep waters, and we've only shared a fraction of the deep waters we've had to go through. But we can see God directing us. So probably committing yourself to God and asking for his direction in your life.
That's great.
As a young couple or even as a young single, you know, as a human being, really.
Anything from you, Gaye?
I would just stress the importance of prayer. Like there's an old hymn that says, take it to the Lord in prayer.
My
you
favorite.
know.
That's my favorite one.
And I've learned from experience that is really important, and that you can take anything to God. He hears us. He does answer, and he cares, and you can pray about anything.
Yeah, great.
Whether it's relationship or finances or your emotions, your feelings, just talk to God about it and tell him and ask him for his help and guidance. And that's the best starting point. Start there, and be prepared to work hard if it's a financial thing. Some people are not prepared to go out and work hard. Well, if that's what's necessary, do it. You know. But the bottom line is trust God and ask him for his guidance. And to help you.
Thank you so much, Gaye and David, for first of all welcoming us in your home, and also just giving us so much wisdom. I believe so many people will learn from this, and so just with your generous heart, just giving your wisdom, it's just beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
It's been a pleasure, Mike and Christelle.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you for watching or listening. If you haven't done it, please subscribe to our podcast or our YouTube channel, Mike and Christelle Podcast. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
And remember, when family is healthy, the nation is healthy.
See you next time.